What if you could take that risk, make that change, reach that goal, live your best life? Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast, where we get together with amazing experts and everyday people who share challenges, encourage healing, and explore the possibilities that life has to offer. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and I'm excited that you're along for the ride.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast. And today, my wonderful guest is Michael T. Brown. Hello, Michael T. Brown.
Hello, Gary. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for joining me. I'm very grateful. Um, if I may, I just want to read your bio real quick, your intro, let people know who we're playing with, and we'll get started.
Sounds good.
Covist. All right, everybody, we have Michael T. Brown with great purpose and passion. Michael T. Brown is a licensed professional counselor, has been empowering individuals, families, businesses, communities with tremendous success for over 20 years. Michael serves as a principal of Brown's Leadership Consulting, which provides counseling support to individuals and families, consulting services to organizations and businesses. Michael also served as a national trainer for the Why Try LLC, one of the nation's leading resilience education programs that specializes in student achievement. Michael also partnered with the D.C. Office of the Attorney General to serve as a trainer for their Violence Interrupter program, which is awesome. That's been done since 2020. Michael authored two books. One is Born to Achieve in 2012 and A Beautiful Challenge in 2017. In 2013, Michael hosted The Brown Bag with Michael T. Brown on Blog Talk Radio, interviewing some key community difference makers and flashing the spotlight on the pertinent issues facing our society. Michael is committed to empowering others and communities through education, inspiration, mobilization. Michael also enjoys spending time with family and friends. I love it. Good, 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 good stuff. So thank you again, Michael.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I love all that stuff, but I got to ask my what if I could question, and I'm stepping out of the way, and then we're going to get deep into all your stuff that you're doing. So, because we're the What If You Could podcast, do you have a what if you could thought or what if you could mission or something that happened when one day you said, man, if I could do this, it'd be great? Or you have
Yeah.
something you want to share with us?
It's a great question, great theme, and thanks again for having me, Gary. I'm glad I waited to think about this question until now. And the first thing that jumps into my head would be to relieve human suffering and raise self esteem. I'm a firm believer, Gary, that we're going to gain some things in life, we're going to lose some things in life. But one thing that we cannot afford to lose is our belief that we can bounce back, that we can win, that we can thrive, that we can succeed. But so many individuals, right, struggle with belief in themselves, or belief in a higher power, or belief in humanity. And given, uh, a lot of the challenges we face in society, it makes sense why certain situations and life events would want to suck that belief out of us. So, what if I could to instill belief, hope, encouragement, and esteem.
I love that, man. I mean, is it getting harder, Michael? Is it getting harder with how fast shit comes at us? Social media, how quickly things are moving, how easy it is for people to put other people down. Is it getting harder, you think, for people to hold on to that self-esteem and that belief?
In many ways, I'd say I believe it is getting harder. But I'm a firm believer, though, that in many ways there's nothing new under the sun. There's something seems that happens generationally that people think their generation is always the worst. It's like and or that their generation was so great and the other ones were so bad. And I get that. I mean, obviously, the more, for you think about social media, for example, we just now have more of a platform. So people can just be meaner and more in public or hide behind their phone, right? So it's not that, hatred or anger or problems are new. None of that's new. It's just I think people have more tools maybe to, you know, spread it around. But overall, I think there is something to how difficult times and challenging times, you know, can create a certain sense of desperation or cause people to lose hope. So I think there is something there, but I try to be more glass half full than glass half empty, more optimism than pessimism, because I can't think of a better time to live in 2025.
Yeah.
Given,
It's funny, like Mike Tyson says, uh, people don't get afraid of getting hit in the face that much anymore or something like that because of social media, and people can just hit and run. It's like so
yeah,
ridiculous,
yeah,
and there's so many bizarre facts, right? And people hold so tight to things. They don't even want to open up. It's like I'm on this side of the spectrum and that's all I'm going to believe. I
right,
refuse to even consider listening to Michael T. Brown because his beliefs are not my beliefs. So I won't even listen to the guy, right?
yeah.
How bizarre is that?
You know, it's interesting you're talking about this, guy. I was literally thinking about this yesterday. What you just mentioned, this whole idea of how we choose what we want to hear sometimes, and some of that's good and healthy from a standpoint of we want to align with people who have similar beliefs. Certain things resonate more with us than others, but I think there's a value in hearing different sides. I think there's a value in wanting to grow personally. I think that's how we grow personally, really, is the openness, the willingness to want to learn from others and other people's perspectives. And, you know, so I don't know that social media per se is the enemy. It's a tool, it's a platform, and we get to choose how we use it. We get to choose how we engage. The same phone, the same technology that someone can use to demonize or belittle is the same technology that allows us to have conversations like this, to maybe shed some light. So I just appreciate you, Gary, in making the decision of, hey, I'm going to use this technology, this medium, right, to put positive content, positive material out there. I think it's wonderful the explosion in podcasts, and the conversations and the materials that's happening. Um, the technology and the social media is great in that everybody gets a voice. It's not so great in that everybody gets a voice.
Exactly.
So it just depends
Because
on.
not everyone might should have one. Some people.
Not everybody should get a microphone, huh? Right. Yeah.
But it's funny because I was interviewing a gal yesterday, uh, Deborah Heiser, and she runs the Mentor Project. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing, She gets these senior citizens. She's got like astronauts, and she's got Nobel laureates and stuff like that. Her volunteering, and she's putting together a thing where these people can vote, give their knowledge, right? So you've
Yeah.
got with like from where you're from, where I'm from our family. I mean, back in the day, you'd sit around with grandma and she would, teach you. I mean, for thousands of years, the elders, brought you, wisdom. And yet now today we have access to incredible amounts of
Yes.
wisdom,
Yes.
but
Yes. Yes.
some of them don't, some of us don't even want to try listening to other points of wisdom, right? It's
Right.
crazy in a way, isn't it?
Yeah. I see it as an opportunity though, because at the end of the day, the same tools, the same platform can be used for good or it can be used for ill. And I don't know, somebody may be listening right now and they're thinking about, stepping out on faith, and maybe they get inspired to start a podcast or start a program. These things are often fueled by conversations and inspiration, and that's a big part of why I'm so optimistic. I don't think you can fool everybody all the time. At the end of the day, right? We still have the opportunity and ability to critically think and line up with things that resonate with our heart and that speak to our spirit.
Yeah. One of the first things you said was human suffering. And I'm the type of guy that cries at toilet paper commercials, you know. I mean, I just do. I'm an emotional dude. I just am, you know, always have been. Um, Human suffering touches me a lot, and I started this a separate podcast before I got this one about called Grief Pie about dealing with people who've lost spouses to cancer.
Yeah.
Um, it was so wicked bad, dude. It was too emotional. We just cried all the time. It was too much about.
Yeah.
But God, there's so much human suffering out there. I mean, with all the
Yeah.
wealth, with everything this world has, why on earth is there so much human suffering out there? What are we doing wrong, man?
Well, no small question there, but right.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's good.
But I figured you were the
We
guy to go to.
well, no, I think let's tackle this. I certainly don't have all the answers to this, but what the first thing that stands out to me is, you know, our mental, our physical, our spiritual, our emotional health. When we're investing in those areas, it doesn't mean we're not going to suffer, but we can get the tools and the skills and the strategies to hopefully navigate it. You know, why is there evil in the world? I can't say I know the answer to that, but I think it gives opportunity for good to win, right? If there were no evil, then it might not. If there weren't evils or not suffering, then it wouldn't give us the opportunity to overcome it. There's a phrase in Stoicism that says adversity is the way. When I think about that, to every life some rain must fall, whether self-inflicted or not. We all are going to have some adversity. We all are going to have some challenges. We all may experience some suffering. And we might not know the rhyme or the reason. It may be at the hands of someone else. But at the end of the day, we don't get to choose everything that happens to us, but we do get to choose our response. And somebody might be listening right now that's going through a difficult season. And I encourage you, think about your response. How are you going to respond to it? Right? Here's where I am. Here's where I want to go. And what am I going to do to get there? And our desire, the will, the grit, the determination, the tenacity to push towards our goals, to push towards the things that we want to accomplish. Uh, it might not relieve all the suffering, but we may grow or become a better version of ourselves along the journey. Yeah.
I love that. And I mean, sometimes you got to get kicked in the nuts to wake up. You know what I
Mm,
mean? I mean, sometimes you just do. I mean, life is so easy for so many of us, right? I mean, really, when you think about it, I mean, shoot, you don't even need to leave your house anymore. You know, I can get groceries, I can get a cheeseburger, I can get a book, I can get whatever I want. I could just sit on the couch and have shit show up at my house, right? I mean, if we wanted to. I mean, life can be amazingly easy. You could just be like that Chauncey the gardener, you know, who's just clueless to everything and just existing. But the challenge with that is what what type of life is that, right? I mean, when you're meeting with people and you're counseling people and you're getting with people, I mean, are you seeing a common thread with folks that they're struggling with right now, or is it just kind of all over the board with who you're counseling and working with?
great question. Before I ask anybody what's going on with them or what's wrong with them or what brings them there, what brings them here, I do an assessment. So it's less about what's wrong. We're certainly going to go there, but initially it's about what happened to you. What have you experienced? What have you gone through? What trauma or pain maybe have you experienced? And we know we can't change that pain or that trauma, but what we can do is start to unpack it, allow that person to tell their story, and then heal and work and grow. So, for, is life easy? I don't know that it's necessarily easy for anyone. It might, to your point about being able to get things more convenient, it might be more comfortable at times, but convenience and comfort is not necessarily the best blueprint for success and purpose, right? Sometimes we need to be uncomfortable. in order to achieve and to accomplish. And some of the common themes, Gary, to your question, has to deal with what happened to the individual. Uh, we're all going to go through some difficulties, some challenges, some adversity. Mine might not look like yours. Yours might not look like the next guy's. But we're all going to go through some things, and therapy allows us to unpack some of those things, heal, grow, get some strategies, um, not to never suffer or have problems again, but have the tool to navigate it when it does happen.
Yeah, yeah. I I love the title of both of your books, "Born to Achieve" and "A Beautiful Challenge." And I didn't get a chance to go through the Born to Achieve, but I did the Beautiful Challenge. Um, so is Born to Achieve? Is there any autobiographical to that, or is that just your empowerment message, or does that have a little bit to do with you and from where you've come?
A little bit to do with me, but it's really a love letter, if you will, to youth and
Mm.
to the young at
Wow.
heart. I started out as a school counselor, and I just got the opportunity working with so many youth. There's certain tools and principles I wanted to be able to put in their hand to help them on their journey, and that's what the book really derives from. It talks about the importance of education and character development, and realizing that success and greatness, right, is not just a destination, but it's a journey, and
Mm.
that we all were born with gifts, talents, skills, attributes, God-given abilities that ultimately uh, we need to tap into. So it's to encourage people to not don't give up on your goals, your dreams, and here are some tools, some things that can help you along the way.
Yeah. Have you always been like this, Michael? I mean, a lot of us are born like glass half full people, and a lot of
Yeah,
us are born pessimist, glass half empty people. But sometimes we have a mentor, whether it's a family
yeah,
member, like I said, grandma, great grandma, father, mother, brothers, or just a counselor. Like,
yeah.
just think of all the people you touched because they didn't have anybody else, when you were early in your counseling and stuff like that. Has that always been a part of you?
I'd say by and large, I've been a pretty optimistic person. I've been very fortunate, Gary, to been raised in an environment, in a spiritual environment. My father was a pastor, and so growing up in that setting where you see people serve, where you see people meet people where they are, and I got the opportunity, Gary, to uh, be raised in that type of village where you know well, certainly wasn't perfect, but and we had our each family has its own challenges and adversities, but by and large, I had the opportunity to see men and women who served others, who were part of a community, who looked out for one another, and really cared about teaching the next generation. And a lot of that is, for me, comes from a spiritual foundation. To once we know that you know life is just bigger than me and my own personal success, but actually I'm a part of something bigger. Uh, and I got an opportunity to see that a lot of that play out in front of me growing up on a daily basis. And but yeah, I'd say by and large, I'm a pretty optimistic person. Try to be.
Michael, what's going on with faith right now? What's going on with spirituality and faith and what we used to see as more of community and people. What do you think's going on with faith right now?
I think faith is under attack in many ways. Uh, I think our faith has always been under attack. There's something about having to tap into something that's invisible that can be challenging. There's a spiritual teaching where Gary, where Jesus was healing a man, and he said, "Do you believe?" And apparently, the man said back, "I do believe, but help my unbelief." Meaning, there's a part of me that wants to believe, but I'm struggling. And I think we all have those moments, right, Gary? You talked about dealing with people, right? Dealing with grief and the emotion, and dealing with people who struggle with cancer. And it's like I want to believe, but where do I go when I'm struggling with my faith? So to 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 act like one person is super spiritual and never has doubts. I think we all might have doubts. We all may have when we turn on the news, right? All you gotta do is turn on the news. And it's like, man, how can we continue like this? But at the same time, we don't find many news stations that say, look at all the planes that arrived safely on time today. Look at all the kindness and beautiful acts of service that have happened today. So I think we're a mixed bag, kind of like America in many ways. America's a lot of things, right? And and we're a lot of things. There's a lot going on. So you got faith communities that are thriving. You got churches who are thriving, who believe in community, who are doing it the right way, but not just about, you know, checking certain boxes, but about building lives and building people. Those churches tend to thrive and soar. And then you have other churches where, you know, if people aren't getting fed spiritually, if they're just checking a box and showing up, those ministries tend not to stick around very long. So in many ways, churches, faith communities are a lot like capitalism from the standpoint of the good ones do well and the other ones don't. So I mean, so I think
If
we're a
one
mix.
product's better than the other, one product's going to do better, right? And
There you go.
if your product is faith,
Yeah.
and you're doing a better job of helping people find their faith, whatever
Yes.
it is, then people are going to resonate to that, and they're going to follow. They're going to come to that, And
Because they're getting something from it.
yes,
They see
yeah,
the value in it. So I encourage people a lot of times who say, you know what, Mike, I don't, I don't know about the whole, church thing. I might not necessarily be super religious. I said, hey, look, I get it. I get it. People are on a journey. Not everybody necessarily might fall into traditional religion or that sort of thing. But I believe we are spiritual beings.
yes,
We have a spirit, whether we nourish it or not.
yes,
Right. So I say, whether it's in a church, whether it's you communing in nature, whatever it is that you do to feed your soul, that feeds your spirit, whether it's watching podcasts like this, right, where somebody may be inspired, or their favorite YouTube video, or a certain movie, or people that they connect to or that they follow online in social media, any place where we can draw inspiration that feeds our spirit and helps us become better human beings, we want to do more of that than not. Yeah.
yeah. I love that. I mean, I read a book and I interviewed a guy. His son passed from cancer, so he wrote a book about what's good about today. Because
Mm,
that's what his son said while he was going through the very short battle with a wicked cancer, 22-year-old kid. What's good about today? But what was
that's
so
good.
cool about this young man is they were Christian, Jesus Christ, their Savior. They're very,
Yeah.
churchgoers, beautiful people, right? But the son was way into so inclusive, man. He was like, whether like would Jesus be a Taoist? Let's
Mm,
look into Taoism. Let's look into Buddhism. I just loved this dude, even
yeah.
though I just got him from his book. But touching on some of the other things that you talked about is, I just think there's so much fear in the belief right now. I think people are afraid to step out of their circle or their group of belief people. Like we have to
Yeah.
believe this regimentation,
Right.
or you're this or you're that, and there's almost fear of following your belief right now, as if you'll be ostracized or you'll be hammered by that. I mean, and that's a really sad, scary place to be, man.
Yeah. Faith is and belief in many ways has always been under attack. And there's some who want to, you know, shun that. But in many ways, it's personal. And if our faith can't weather an attack, I don't know if it has much faith. Yeah. A faith that doesn't have legs to stand under some persecution, in many ways, right, is a faith we can't rely on. And faith and fear can't really coexist in the same space. So somebody may be listening and they're in a state of fear. right now I live near the nation's capital, and a lot of fear, right, is going on. Particularly, I work with a lot of federal workers who don't know if they're going to get an email to show up or not, or so much fear and change going on in our world, and it's understandable. And we may get afraid or have moments of fear. We all may experience that, right, at times. But we get to come back and say, okay, how do I respond to it? Am I gonna just believe what I'm hearing, or am I gonna believe something that I can hold on to? And faith has a way of showing us where we are and where we want to go. And our faith, our belief, we can afford to lose a lot of things in life, Gary. One thing I don't think we can afraid to lose is our faith, our belief that things can get better, and that we can do our part in making things better.
Harvey McKay wrote a lot of books. One of his favorite books is Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten. But one of his lesser known books was called We Got Fired.
Hmm.
And he interviewed, like, I don't know, 50 people in this book who had all gotten fired. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And they thought it was so devastating, right? Initially.
Yeah.
And they all went on to achieve massive greatness, great things, because they were freed from what they were thought they were supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And they, from the bottom of that, a lot of them said, well, I've got nothing to lose, right? I now am free to go ahead and
Yeah.
try something I want to do instead of do what I have to do.
Yeah.
And so on the other side of fear, like they say, sometimes people call it, fear is false evidence appearing real. Some people say forget everything and run. But on the other side of fear, though, is freedom.
Mm,
If you can
yes.
just get past that fear of whatever it is, you're free because
Yeah.
now there isn't anything holding you down, right?
But faith
And I
has
think faith
substance.
has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, faith has a lot to do with that, and I think it has to do with our life and our lifestyle. Because it's one thing to say I have faith that I can make the basketball team. And it's another thing to say I have faith that I can make the basketball team, but I get up at 6 a.m. I shoot 300 jump shots. I train, right? So it's this. So you know, faith without works in many ways is dead. So we're going to have the faith, but we don't want to leave out the hard work, the discipline, the tenacity, the work ethic. I put it this way, do my part, trust God to do His.
You know the story about the preacher and the flood, right? Just like what you're saying. So
Yeah.
the preachers
Oh
in the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
church.
yeah.
It starts raining. They send a fire department. Look, priest, pastor, you got to get in the fire truck, take you away, or you're gonna drown. He's like, no, God will take care of me. And then it gets higher. He goes, boat comes along.
Send
Hey,
him a
you
boat.
got to
Yeah,
get in, or you're gonna drown. No,
yeah.
God will save me. He's on the top of the roof. They send a helicopter. He said, pastor, you got to get in, or you're gonna drown. God will save me. He drowns. He dies. He goes to heaven. He said, God, why didn't you save me? He said, dude, at some point. You have to work yourself. I can
Listen,
only do so much,
I
right?
sent you the boat. I sent you the.
Yes, I
Yeah,
sent you these
absolutely.
things. So
I
you
sent you
got
the
to
boat.
get up at 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning, whatever it is.
That's
You've got to go shoot 300 jump shots. You just can't say, "Man, I believe I'm going to be the next Michael Jordan," and you're going to be. It's just not, you
right.
have to put action behind that faith, and I think that's a lot of what we're seeing in my mind is such a challenge. Is people are fearful of putting action behind their faith because faith has fallen so far out of favor,
Mm,
and people are so compartmentalized in their beliefs that that's just got to drop. We just got to
yeah.
drop that, and I don't know how that gets done. I have no
I,
idea.
I I think conversations like this help. I think social media can help. A lot of people see somebody doing something on social media and get inspired and say, I need to do mine as well. So, right, where we can learn from one another, where somebody may say, what, why not me? Why not try a podcast? Why not start this business? Why not start saving money, or try this relationship, or go for this job. And I think we have a responsibility to encourage one another, to be a part of that community that identifies things in people and inspires that. That's one of the things I'm so grateful for. Is I've had people who may have saw things in me that I might not have saw it myself at the time. And then we can do the same, where we can see things in people and encourage them. So if you know somebody that's suffering, if you see that child who's trying to get out of that tough home environment, or you know somebody and they're struggling with cancer, and you can take them that meal or give them that word of encouragement, or that smile, or just show love and be present, it can go a long way, Gary. It can go a long way.
Yeah. How did you come about where you were able to start the Brown's Leadership Council? I mean, your actual, corporation with Brown's Leadership Counseling. Um, how did that come about?
Great question. It really emerged over time. I told you I started as a school counselor, and then as I started to get into private practice, that's the umbrella that I decided, to branch out. And I had the opportunity to, have my own counseling practice that falls under there, and work with other people, whether it's businesses, at times, organizations, public speaking. So over time, just being given opportunities led to that. And I can't say I personally had a master plan. It was one of those things where you step out on faith, and God presents you with some opportunities, and then some more opportunities come, and you try to show up and have fidelity in what you do, and you get blessed with some more opportunities. So, organically, in many ways, how it happened. And yeah, yeah,
And where are you doing it Zoom? Are you having in-person meetings, or
I
how
do
does
both.
your counseling about? You do both of these?
Yeah.
And why are you working with so many federal workers, just out of curiosity?
Well, when I was talking about the federal workers, I live near the nation's capital, so naturally, there's a lot who work here in this area. Yeah.
Yeah, my son is uh K9, runs the K9 kennel at
Oh,
Andrews Air Force Base.
nice.
And so we still call it Andrews Air Force Base because he's in the Air Force. So we don't go
Yeah.
to that joint base Andrews stuff. But we were just in Maryland, and man, what an amazing city Washington is.
Yeah.
I'd never been there. You get a real weird vibe when you're there. It's you can feel it. It's a
Yeah.
whole different
Dynamic place.
vibe, you know.
Dynamic place.
Um, so tell me about a beautiful challenge. Tell me about a beautiful challenge.
Yeah, beautiful challenge. I noticed, as I particularly started working with couples, marriage counseling, that, you know, whether it's personal or professional, healthy relationships are not inherited. They're fought for and they're won. And the book helps individuals realize that, we can increase our learning capacity. You know, some success, Gary, is not just a lack of will, sometimes a lack of skill. Some things can be taught to communicate more effectively, to take care of our own mental health so that we can be better relationally, to realize that there are skills and steps and strategies that can help our relationships grow and flourish. But at the heart of it, a lot of it has to do with our own personal growth. I believe personal growth has no finish line. Every day is an opportunity to learn more about ourselves and others. So, healthy individuals, I believe, make up healthy relationships. So, the book helps with from that individual side, gives some tools and strategies of how we can take care of ourselves personally. And it also offers relationship help, how we can better interact with others relationally. Yeah.
And in relation, you mean just everybody, husband, wife, mother,
Yeah.
father, work mate,
Personal or professional,
work
family,
person, professional.
marriage, you
When it
name it.
comes to marriage and families, do you think it's too easy for people to bail nowadays? Do you think
Mm,
people just give up too easy, or did they get together too easy? Remember, I mean, I'm way older than you. I'm 3 times older than you, but I mean,
I don't know about that, but
even even before that, people just stayed together. And that's not always a good thing. I'm not
yeah,
saying
that
divorce
yeah, yeah, well,
isn't sometimes necessary.
right, right,
People just don't like each other anymore. But
yeah.
I don't know. I just wonder if it's. easy now for daughters to not like their mom, sons not like their dads, just husband and wife not getting along, coworkers not getting along. Is it easier now to not get along, or has it
I
always
don't
been
know
that
if
way?
it's easier not to get along. I think it's society in many ways has maybe made it easier to separate or to split up. But I think relationships in many ways have always been challenging. Um, it's hard to take two people, for example, in a marriage, right, who came from different backgrounds, different experiences, and say, hey, go live together for 50, 60, 70 years, right? Let's go figure that out, right? So
You're
we know
stuck with
it's,
each other for 50 years, so deal with it.
but to your point, Gary, I think you touched something very important that I think a lot of it has to do with how we view commitment. If I'm not feeling it, can I just roll out? Or am I willing to put the work in, make the changes, and do the work? But not everybody who separates or divorced is separated or divorced because they want it. You need a dance partner. And if you get two people who truly love each other and value the commitment, hopefully they'll put the work in. By and large, I believe people get married for the right reasons. By and large. Um, but I think the compatibility on the front end really matters. I was watching a video, YouTube on video, the other day where a gentleman was interviewing a guy. I think he was in his mid 90s, and the young guy was asking him, "What are some success principles? To how do you be successful and have a productive life?" And the gentleman said, "Marry the right person." It's like, right, and that speaks to compatibility.
Right, right.
Some stuff, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, every relationship's gonna have its challenges, but I mean, you want to make sure you choose somebody on the front end. Now, there's no guarantees, right? No guarantees, but on the front end, it doesn't safe proof, separation or divorce. But you want to find somebody you have common values with that, treat you the right way, and you spend time getting to know them, and if they'll work with you.
Yeah,
Key principle: workability.
yeah.
Are you getting with somebody who will work with you and you'll work with them? Those are the two things I say really stand out for healthy relationships: compatibility and workability.
Yeah.
You need to be
And as you got to
compatible.
throw communication in there, if
Oh,
you
yeah.
guys can't communicate, if
Oh, we
you
got
guys
problems.
just cannot communicate, you're on different wavelength,
Yeah,
you've got some challenges right out the gate, right? I mean, you've got to be able to
absolutely.
communicate,
Communication's huge.
have some,
And fortunately, I catch people at a time when they're ready to work on it.
yeah.
Because by the time they reach out to a therapist, they may say, okay, look, we're off. Help us get back on track. And I see it happen. So, yeah.
I love that people will are willing to come and be vulnerable and
Yes.
willing to come and give that. When my first wife, she was 18 and I was 21. We were together 28 years and she
That's
passed
a
from
good run.
cancer.
Oh,
And
okay.
so that's 10 years ago, but it feels like yesterday, of course. But I remarried 4 years ago. And it's such a trip because when April and I married, she was 18 and I was 21. We had no baggage. We didn't know what we were doing. All we knew is we we were it, right? I mean, we were peas and carrots. We just knew it. And we were always peas and carrots to the end.
Nice. Nice.
But when we get in the new relationship, it's like, dude, you got 50 years of baggage, man. And I'll say this out loud if my wife was even here, dude, she can hear this. She had cargo loads. She had shipping containers full of baggage, bro. She had, I'm like, dude, where did you keep all this shit? And I, of course, was living in this deep grief of losing my best friend in the world. So when we came together, it was like, all right, how
Yeah.
we gonna make this work? But what we had was a friendship.
Mm,
I knew, matter of fact, our first date, we met during the COVID thing is on Facebook as friends, not like on a dating app or anything.
great.
And so I go, let's meet. She likes to shoot. I like to shoot. So I go, let's go out in the desert and shoot. Well, that'll be our first date, right? So later we're laughing like, so Wait a minute. You volunteered to go as a total stranger that you met off Facebook into the desert with weapons. And you didn't think that was crazy. So I show up for the date. I've got my neighbor Bob because he wanted to go because he heard we were going to go out. So I got my neighbor Bob in the front seat. I got my son, his wife, his wife's stepdad, and
That's
I think
funny.
there's one of the. So I show up with all these people on a first date. The front seat's taken. I throw her in the back, introduce everybody, and she's like, "What?
Who is this guy?
What the hell?" But I said, "Listen, I dated three people since my wife passed. They were all amazing, but I want my friend. I
Mm,
want my partner. I want sex is so easy, right? The bullshit is so easy, right? But when you've got your friend, your
yeah,
partner, you're ride and die, someone who's got your six, it's a whole different thing, right? It's tough to find, but if you're lucky enough to find it, it's a place to be.
no, well said. And I appreciate you sharing your story and your journey. And that can inspire people to know that, even as your wife transitioned, that we don't have to give up on love, and we can move forward in life. And uh, no, I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. I started to work with like grief counseling and getting into becoming a grief counselor and stuff. And I think the biggest challenge that we have as people who've lost spouses or children and stuff is just that feeling like we can't ever move on. I'll never get over it, to this day, I mean, just the other day I was crying about my first
Yeah,
wife.
yeah,
My current wife is great about it. She's like, dude, get through what you got to get through. You loved her. But like you said, you still have your life. I
that's
have my
right.
son. She has her
That's right.
daughters.
That's
For
right.
them, if anything, you have to get through this.
That's right.
You never get over it,
Right.
right? But you
Right.
have
Right.
to get through
That's
it
right.
somehow
That's right.
and live.
Well said. And that, in many ways, honors the person who transitioned.
Yes, yes.
Yes. That's what they would want, right, Gary?
Oh, my wife, April, was a badass Colombian woman. She'd kick my ass if she knew I was still struggling with this
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
right? I mean, she does, and that's why when I loved the title of your book, A Beautiful Challenge, right?
Yeah.
Because it truly is getting over grief, getting over loss of any kind of loss, a child, a spouse, a parent, a job, a career, bankruptcy, whatever. Getting over loss can be a beautiful challenge. And
That's
I
right.
loved your title, man. I just
Thank
like,
you.
ooh, I want to get into this with
Yeah.
Michael because it's so true. It can be a
It
beautiful challenge.
can. It can. The adversity can build character. The pain. I heard a quote that I really like. It says, those who God often uses deeply, he allows them to have been hurt greatly.
Mm. Wow.
Sometimes the deeper the pain, the greater the platform it's going to be. It's hard to help people in areas, it can be harder to help people in areas that we have not lived through. But when you can get with another person who, like, man, I know how it is, or I miss my spouse as well, to be able to say, you know what, something lost, but something gained. And matter of fact, we can even look at the word loss and maybe even challenge that thought and to say, you know what, our loved ones who passed away are not lost. Obviously, we grieve them, we miss them. It'd be great to pick up the phone or hang out, but they're more at peace now than ever. And we have to run our race. So imagine our ancestors passing the baton, those who've transitioned. I believe it's a transition. Their spirit is still alive, and that they're still with us in many ways, right? Through their spirit to say, they've passed the baton. Now I got to run my race. How would they want me to run it? Sad or with joy or with optimism? To say, no, I got to run my race. And I can do it by honoring them, still build a memorial in our heart for them, let the tears flow. To say we miss our loved ones, right? But to say, no, 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 with a smile and with hope and optimism, to say, you know what? They'd be kicking my butt right now if they knew it, right? Get up, get going and live your life, because life is for the living.
Yes, exactly.
So when we go to memorial, so I have to watch myself sometimes, Gary, when someone tells me that a loved one transitioned, from a standpoint of, obviously we lament with them and we mourn with them, but my thought is, particularly if they're a person of faith, is job well done. Congratulations. You ran your race. Whether it was 1 year or 110 years, death is undefeated. It's a very natural part of life, right? And the baton's passed. We need to run our race.
Death is death is undefeated, man. It's it's like 80 billion to 1 to 0, right?
Exactly.
It is
Exactly.
undefeated. And with my boys, I mean, I've got two amazing sons from my wife.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like it's tough. It's
Yeah.
really tough. Their
Yeah.
mom was one of the greats of all time. She was an amazing woman.
She was the real deal, huh? Right.
Seriously, real deal. I mean, like, n- you would never meet someone who, if you just mention April, they'd go, April. They would light up just from the vibe. And to this day, 10 years since she's passed, you meet someone, they go, I got a story. And that's when you leave someone
Yeah. That's a
who
legacy, man.
leaves a story on your heart,
Yeah.
and everyone you touch has a story. You don't get any better than that. And
That's beautiful.
yeah, so my boys, that's what we try to focus on. Look how many people mom touched.
That's right.
When you're walking through a field of flowers, you stop and pick the most beautiful one, right? And God just like walking through the field one day and say, I'm gonna pluck this one up here. I need some help up here. April's gonna start running this place.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, I know in your book, A Beautiful Challenge, and through your counseling, through your teachings, um, what you're doing is a beautiful thing. And I'm sure it's a beautiful challenge because let's face it, Michael, it can be exhausting helping people. How do you protect yourself? How do you not get too into it where you lose a little bit of Michael when you're doing this work?
Great question. Uh, Taking care of my own mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional health, making sure that I try to practice what I preach, and make sure that my working on my own relationships goes a long way. Uh, as imperfectly as I do it, and to realize that my role in therapy is limited. That, right, I don't necessarily have to produce answers for people. My job is to help them navigate. There are principles and strategies that I believe help and that can work, but at, at the end of the day, to realize that success in many ways is one of the greatest anecdotes. Well, you might say, well, Mike, what do you mean by that? 'Cause that's one of the number one questions I'm often asked is how do you avoid uh, not bringing a lot of this stuff home? Well, if you're helping people, there's not much for me to bring home. It's like, I mean, not that I'm solving the problems, right? But I'm not necessarily to solve all the problems. But if you're getting help and you're leaving better than you came in, I'm good going home, right?
That will feed you more than drain you. I mean, there's
That's right.
nothing that
That's
feels
right.
better than seeing someone that you have helped kind of walk through that
That's
threshold,
right. That's right.
right? That will give you juice like nothing else will, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. That, and also, again, that doesn't mean we don't feel and feel. It certainly can be emotional, seeing people and being in that space, sharing that space with people as they face difficulty and adversity, pain or trauma. No, there's no way around that. But at the end of the day, that's what helps connect us,
Mhm.
because it's a great equalizer. We all are going to experience some pain, some difficulty. We're all going to make some mistakes and make some poor choices. But to know that we got one another along the way, that client therapist relationship
Yeah.
is so precious. It can be so powerful. Both ways, where I'm being helped and they're being helped as well, because It's not just about what I have to teach, but it's also what I have to learn. I posture myself as a student and a teacher
Hmm.
because sometimes when somebody's living through something, they're teaching me, Gary.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you know what? And that's the beauty of you, Michael, is that you don't stop learning and giving, because so many people are, well, I'm the shit, man. I know everything. I'm just going to tell you how this is going to go. I'm the therapist. I'm the professional. I'm the expert here. I'm going to fix you, right? Or tell you what to do and so on and so forth. But that's just not how it works.
No, that's not how it works.
That is
It's not
not
how it
how it
works.
works because we're energy fields, right?
That's right. That's right.
I've got my energy that's out of whack.
Yeah,
You're going to help me balance my energy, but
that's
you
right.
can't force that.
That's right.
That
We
has to
can we
flow.
can the tools, the principles, the strategies, the best practices, helping people navigate their emotions, unpacking pain and trauma. A lot of that is my job. And, I have to be prepared and willing to do that. But to realize that, right, it's not necessarily our job to make decisions for other people. So we help guide, we help navigate is a good way of putting it. Yeah.
And take some burden off of people sometimes. I think
Yeah.
the one thing I've discovered through counseling um, is sometimes people are just carrying a burden that they don't know how to release, who to give it to, how to get rid of it. And so they hold it, right? They don't want to bother family or friends or spouses or stuff. And so I found that good therapy a lot of times will help relieve that burden,
Absolutely.
remove that from the people, right?
And it starts that's one of the things I love about my job so much is that I don't pursue them. By the time they've called me, they're a lot of times they're ready, Gary. They've already made up in their heart and their mind, I need help.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're just ready and willing to share in a safe space. So whoever's listening out there, if you're struggling and you don't, we all need somebody to talk to. It might not be in a therapeutic setting, but whether it's a mentor, a coach, a counselor, somebody who you know has your back, that you trust. If you can tell your story, get it off your chest, that goes a long way in of itself. Then we can get into what to do, but sometimes we just got to get it out there. And that's a big part of what we want to do here. And you've done in this podcast, Gary, and I believe you're doing in your work, is creating a safe space for people where they can share what they're going through. So I tip my hat and I commend you for that. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. And right back at you. But, in a way, although I am not a doctor, um, I don't know if you're a doctor, but I know that not in a medical sense, but in a lot of ways, I consider what we do, we cure disease,
Mm,
right? Dis-ease.
this
I
ease,
mean,
anxiety.
the
Yeah,
body, when it holds a lot of this negativity and this pain and this grief and stuff, it becomes a disease,
that's right.
right? So we need to take this dis-ease and we
Yeah,
need to help people relieve themselves
that's right.
of
That's right.
this disease,
That's right.
and like you said, everybody has it. If you don't think you have it, then that's you need to go find help.
Yeah, yeah. And for some people, they may need, more than talk therapy, whether it's medicine or, some type of psychiatric help. I mean, obviously, that has its place. But also, having a safe space where you can talk, where you can share, where you can learn, where you can grow, you know, that's a part of the human experience.
Yeah, I love that. This has been great. This hour just freaking ripped by. I just want to touch on two quick things. It
Yes,
just
sir.
interested me very much, and then I'll let you come. Just super grateful for your time. But
You're more than welcome.
tell me real quick about why try LLC. What is
Yeah, so
why
back
try?
in White Try is a company out in Utah that focuses in on resilience education for youth. And anybody who's in the school systems or in dealing in any type of mental health, check them out, whytry.org. What they do is they, you know, work with schools, organizations, companies um, to tap into their resilience. And they use various, media forms to do it, particularly with youth, uh, getting them engaged in music and art and mental health approaches that are not necessarily so straightforward in mental health like therapy would be, but helps youth to answer the question, why try? Why keep going to school? Why keep working hard? Why keep fighting through the adversity? And there's a great group of folks out there at Why Try who can help schools, and so check them out. Go online, whytry.org. And I had the opportunity to be a trainer for them, and travel the country back in 2016, and helping educators bring these tools into their school and help them answer that question of why try.
Wow, that's massive. That is so huge because let's face it, man. I mean, the suicide rate for young kids, the depression rate for young kids, the
Yeah,
whole confusion about whatever
yeah,
being young. It's just, I mean, how many times as a child, a young adult, a teenager, just say that, man? Why try?
yeah,
Screw it.
yeah.
School's too tough. My parents fight. The money that I get bullied. It's just that gives me goosebumps because if we don't save our youth, if we don't save the kids, man, what are we doing? Why are we even being
You're
here?
so right. You're
If
so
we're
right.
not giving the hand up to our youth, man.
That's a good point. Sometimes Gary, we talk about our youth as though we didn't raise them. We
Yeah.
talk about them as it's us and them.
Yeah.
What's wrong with them? Now they obviously going to have their challenges, but in many ways, one generation is a direct reflection of those who raised them or did not do the best job raising them. So we got to remove some of that line in the sand and see our youth as no, it shouldn't be a line in the sand. Well, we got to, you know, be there and teach and encourage and allow them to share and teach us as well. I encourage people, don't get amnesia. Don't forget what it was like to be a child,
Yeah.
particularly some of the challenges that they face in 2025, you know? But I'm encouraged when I think of our youth because they're running rings around a lot of other generations in some capacities and what they're able to do and how they're able to do it. So I'm big on the next generation. I think it's a bad bet to bet against our youth because we got folks out here on the front lines who are going to make sure it's a good bet.
I love that, man. I love
Yes,
it
sir.
because hey, someone's got to wheel me around a couple years from now with my oxygen tank and take care of me. You know what I'm
Hey, I think
saying?
you're going to be in
So
good hands.
one more thing, and like I
Yes, sir.
said, you got one more sec. I want to ask about the violence interrupter program. What's the violence interrupter program?
So, Violence Interrupted Program is a program I had the opportunity here in Washington, D.C. to be a part of to help train communities to help keep their communities safe. So, we deal with people in the community, give them some strategies and tools to connect with those who are, creating a lot of problems or the violence in their community. And all hands on deck approach from within. Sometimes people think outside people need to come in to save our communities. No, the people who live in communities are the ones who are going to be mostly impacted. So when you help those help themselves, and I had the blessing, Gary, to be a part of some training that went into that, and you know, yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome, and so any opportunity we get, to try to help people, man, we want to take it.
I love it, man. Hey, you're doing so much, Michael. I just so grateful for your time. Like I said, this hour just went blazing by. But I love everything you're doing, man. I love your counseling. I love your giving back. I love your beliefs, your attitudes. Yeah, we need some more Michael T. Browns laying around, that's for sure. But
And I
but
appreciate
I
you.
did lie to you earlier. I lied. I lied.
What's
I
up?
got it. Your father's was pastor. So I got to confess. I lied. Um, I said I had one question, but I actually have two questions.
All right, let's go for it.
But I don't give the last question. I only give you the first question. So my last
Gotcha.
question before we sign off is, um, if there's something that you wanted to leave with our listeners, if there's something that just meant something to Michael T. Brown, just a saying or a thought or something you've learned through all your experiences, if there's something that just really means something to you that you'd love to leave us with, what would that thought be?
Love God, love people, never give up.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's just, like I said, whether it's families, whether it's relationships, whether it's work, it's so easy to give up nowadays. It's amazing. I mean, our world changed so dramatically with the COVID. You know, people got stuck together. Wives realized they hated their husbands. Kids found out they hated their parents. You know, people didn't want to go back to work. I mean, people let their health go sideways. It's like,
Yeah.
why are we giving up? This is not who
It's
we
not the
are as
time to give
people.
up. It's not the time to give up. It's time to think about winning. It's time to prepare for winning. And, we don't necessarily have to win every fight we're in, but I think we need to fight every fight we're in.
Yeah,
So
love it.
keep the good fight. Keep fighting the good fight of faith.
I love it. You don't have to win every fight, but fight every day
You gotta,
like
it's
a
hard to
champ.
win a fight you're not in. You gotta be in it. That's right.
I love it. All right, everybody. You have been exposed to the amazing Mr. Michael T. Brown, licensed professional counselor, principal of Brown's Leadership Consulting. He is the author of two wonderful books, Born to Achieve and also A Beautiful Challenge. Michael, where can everybody find you? How do we get a piece of Michael T. Brown?
Thanks again for having me. They can find me at my website, brownsleadership.com, or on X at mtbrown98. I'm also on LinkedIn, and even if they do, they can even email me if somebody want to contact me directly. I do speaking engagements and that sort of thing, so I'd love to connect with your audience. My email is email@brownsleadership.com. Email@brownsleadership.com, and we'll get right back with them. Thanks again, Gary, for having me. I appreciate you.
You're so welcome, my friend. This was really great, and we'll make sure all those links are on the podcast, so someone could just touch
Sounds
it and
good.
go right to all your stuff. We'll make sure that's out there. Are you on Facebook, Instagram, any of that stuff, or just like the ones you mentioned?
IG, no, I am on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can find me there. Search my name, Michael T. Brown. Yep.
Awesome. All right, my friend. Everybody, thank you so much for listening in to another episode of the What If You Could podcast and with our friend Michael T. Brown. Thank you guys. Peace out. Talk to you soon.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of What If You Could podcast. Please subscribe, like, share, and give us any feedback. We'd love to hear it. And remember, if you can dream it, you can do it. See you next time.